Prologue. The sun was setting in the small town of Ravenwood, casting an orange glow over the quiet streets. In a dark alleyway, a hooded figure stood, observing the comings and goings of the townspeople. The figure was shrouded in mystery, with only their eyes visible through the hood. These eyes were a deep, piercing blue, and they watched intently as the townspeople went about their business, completely unaware of the danger that was looming over them. Chapter 1. The town of Ravenwood was a peaceful place, known for its rolling hills, lush forests, and quaint little homes. It was a place where people came to escape the chaos of the city and live a simpler life. But for one young woman, life in Ravenwood was about to become a lot more complicated. Katie was a recent arrival to the town, having moved from the city to escape her troubled past. She was a young woman of average height, with long, curly brown hair and piercing green eyes. She had a quiet, reserved personality, but she was strong and determined, having had to overcome many obstacles in her life. Katie was walking home from the local grocery store when she noticed a hooded figure standing in the shadows of an alleyway. She hesitated for a moment, her instincts telling her to turn around and run the other way, but something about the figure intrigued her. She cautiously approached the figure, and as she got closer, she could see that it was a young man. He was tall and lean, with sharp features and a brooding expression. "Excuse me," Katie said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Is everything okay?" The young man didn't answer, but instead he looked up at Katie, his blue eyes locking onto hers. For a moment, Katie felt a strange sense of familiarity, as if she had met this person before. But she quickly brushed the feeling aside, realizing that she must have been mistaken. "I'm sorry," Katie said, taking a step back. "I didn't mean to intrude." The young man still didn't speak, but instead he handed Katie a piece of paper. She took the paper hesitantly, her hands shaking as she unfolded it. Written in bold letters were the words, "The truth is coming. Be prepared." Katie looked up at the young man, but he had disappeared into the shadows, leaving her alone in the alleyway with the mysterious note. She quickly gathered her courage and ran back out into the street, her heart pounding in her chest. She had no idea what the note meant, but she knew that she had to find out. And so, Katie set out on a journey to uncover the truth about the mysterious figure and the town of Ravenwood. Chapter 2. The next day, Katie was sitting in the local coffee shop, sipping on her latte and pondering over the strange note she had received the previous night. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was not right in the town of Ravenwood, and she was determined to find out what it was. As she sat there, lost in thought, she noticed a young man walking into the coffee shop. It was the same young man she had seen in the alleyway the previous night, and her heart started racing as she realized that he was heading straight for her table. "Excuse me," the young man said, his deep voice catching her off guard. "May I join you?" Katie nodded, her hands shaking as she put down her latte. The young man sat down across from her, his piercing blue eyes fixed on hers. "My name is Xander," he said. "I know that this might sound strange, but I need your help." "What kind of help?" Katie asked, her voice trembling. Xander looked around the coffee shop, making sure that no one was listening in on their conversation. "I need you to help me uncover the truth about Ravenwood," he said, his voice low and urgent. "Something is not right in this town, and I need to find out what it is." Katie stared at Xander, her mind racing. She had a feeling that he was telling her the truth, and she was intrigued by the mystery surrounding Ravenwood. "What do you know?" she asked. Xander hesitated for a moment, his eyes flickering with fear. "I know that there are dark forces at work in this town," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Forces that are determined to keep the truth hidden." Katie felt a chill run down her spine, and she knew that she was in too deep. She had no choice but to help Xander, even if it meant putting her own life in danger. "I'm in," she said, determination in her voice. "What do we do first?" Xander smiled, his eyes shining with relief. "We start by finding out everything we can about Ravenwood," he said. "And we do it fast. Before it's too late." Chapter 3. Over the next few days, Katie and Xander worked tirelessly to uncover the truth about Ravenwood. They spent hours in the local library, poring over old newspapers and historical records, trying to piece together the history of the town. But the more they learned, the more confused they became. The records seemed to be missing key information, and they could never find any solid evidence of the dark forces that Xander had warned her about. Katie was beginning to feel like they were hitting a dead end, when Xander suddenly had an idea. "What if we talked to some of the older residents of the town?" he suggested. "They might have some answers that the records don't." So, the next day, they headed out to the local senior center, where they spent hours talking to the elderly residents of Ravenwood. They listened to stories of the town's past, and of the strange occurrences that had taken place over the years. And finally, they heard a story that changed everything. An old woman, Mrs. Murphy, told them of a mysterious cult that had existed in the town many years ago. She spoke of how they had worshipped the forces of darkness and had been rumored to have been involved in the disappearance of several residents. Katie and Xander were shocked by what they had heard, and they knew that they were finally getting closer to the truth. They returned to the library and continued their research, determined to find out everything they could about the cult and their connection to the mysterious happenings in Ravenwood. As they worked, they felt a growing sense of unease. They could feel the eyes of the town upon them, and they knew that they had to be careful. But they were more determined than ever to uncover the truth, even if it meant putting their own lives in danger. Chapter 4. As the days passed, Katie and Xander became more and more convinced that the cult was at the heart of the strange happenings in Ravenwood. They had found a series of cryptic symbols in the library records that seemed to be connected to the cult, and they were determined to decipher them. But just as they thought they were getting closer to the truth, they received a warning from an anonymous source. The note told them to stop their investigation immediately, or suffer the consequences. Katie and Xander were shaken, but they refused to be intimidated. They continued their research, determined to find out what was going on. One night, as they were working late in the library, they suddenly heard a strange noise coming from the back room. They cautiously approached the door, and as they peered inside, they saw something that made their blood run cold. There, in the center of the room, stood a hooded figure, surrounded by a group of masked individuals. They were chanting in a strange language, and the air was thick with an otherworldly energy. Katie and Xander watched in horror as the hooded figure stepped forward, revealing a symbol that they had seen in their research. It was the symbol of the cult. But before they could run, the hooded figure raised their hand and a bright light enveloped the room. When the light faded, Katie and Xander found themselves back in the main library, with no memory of what had just taken place. It was only then that they realized the terrible truth. The cult was still active, and they were caught in the middle of a dangerous game of power and deceit. And the biggest twist of all was that one of their closest friends was a member of the cult, and had been manipulating them the entire time. Katie and Xander were left reeling, their world turned upside down. They knew that they had to find a way to stop the cult and uncover the truth, but they had no idea how. The battle for the truth had only just begun. Chapter 5. Katie and Xander were filled with a sense of urgency as they tried to make sense of what had happened in the library. They realized that they needed to gather more information about the cult and their motives, and fast. So, they began to delve deeper into the records and archives of the town, searching for any clues or leads that might help them. And it wasn't long before they found something that sent a shiver down their spine. In an old manuscript, they discovered a list of names, including their own. It was a roster of individuals who had been targeted by the cult for recruitment or elimination. Katie and Xander knew that they were in grave danger, and that they needed to act quickly. They began to carefully gather evidence, making sure to keep their investigation under wraps. But they soon realized that they were not alone in their quest. Another group of individuals, known as the Protectors, had been keeping a watchful eye on the cult and its activities for years. Katie and Xander reached out to the Protectors, and together they formed an unlikely alliance. They shared their findings and worked together to unravel the mysteries surrounding the cult and their plans for the town. But as they delved deeper, they uncovered a shocking truth. The cult was not just a group of misguided individuals, but rather a powerful force of evil that had been manipulating the town for centuries. And their ultimate goal was nothing less than the complete control and domination of Ravenwood. With this realization, Katie and Xander knew that they were in a race against time. They were determined to stop the cult, no matter the cost. The battle for the truth had become a battle for their very lives. Chapter 6. Katie and Xander worked tirelessly with the Protectors, piecing together the puzzle of the cult's plans. They were determined to stop them before it was too late. But their efforts were complicated by the fact that the cult had infiltrated all aspects of the town, and their influence was far-reaching. They had members in positions of power, and it seemed that they were always one step ahead of Katie and Xander. Despite the challenges, they continued to gather evidence and search for weaknesses in the cult's plan. And then, finally, they stumbled upon a key piece of information. They discovered that the cult was planning to perform a ritual that would give them complete control over the town. The ritual was to take place on the night of a full moon, and all of the town's residents would be powerless to resist the cult's will. Katie and Xander knew that they had to act fast, and they rallied the Protectors to their cause. Together, they devised a plan to stop the cult's ritual and put an end to their evil machinations once and for all. On the night of the full moon, the town was shrouded in darkness and a tense energy filled the air. Katie, Xander, and the Protectors made their way to the cult's secret hideout, determined to stop the ritual and save Ravenwood. They burst into the room, interrupting the cult's chanting, and a fierce battle erupted. The Protectors used their magic to defend themselves, while Katie and Xander used their wits and bravery to disrupt the cult's plans. In the end, their combined efforts proved to be too much for the cult. The ritual was disrupted, and the cult's hold on the town was broken. Ravenwood was free once more. Katie and Xander emerged victorious, but they knew that the battle was far from over. They had only scratched the surface of the evil that lurked in the shadows of Ravenwood. But they were ready for the next challenge, ready to protect their town and their friends from harm. The fight for truth would continue. Chapter 7, The New Threat. After their victory over the cult, Katie and Xander became known as heroes throughout Ravenwood. The town had never faced a greater danger, and their bravery and quick thinking had saved them all. But their triumph was short-lived. As they continued to investigate the cult and their actions, they uncovered a new and even more sinister threat lurking in the shadows. A powerful and mysterious entity, known only as the Shadow, had been manipulating the cult and pulling their strings. And now, they had set their sights on Ravenwood and its residents. Katie and Xander knew that they had to act quickly to stop the Shadow and protect their town. They gathered the Protectors once again, and together they delved into the depths of the unknown to face their new enemy. The battle was long and difficult, but with determination and courage, Katie and Xander were able to defeat the Shadow. Ravenwood was safe once more, and the town could breathe a sigh of relief. However, Katie and Xander knew that the fight for truth and justice was never truly over. They would continue to stand guard, always ready for the next threat that might emerge from the shadows. As they looked out over Ravenwood, they were filled with a sense of pride and purpose. They had saved their town and protected their friends, and they would continue to do so for as long as they lived. And so, the story of Katie and Xander, the heroes of Ravenwood, was just beginning. They would continue to stand guard, always ready to defend their home and protect their friends from harm. For they were the guardians of the truth, and their fight would never truly end. If you like this video, please give it a like and share. Subscribe the channel for more amazing stories.